let's talk about what I've been reading fiction-wise over the last month or so, just over perhaps. I finished the last of these about a week ago, so it's more or less the first week of Jan into the second week of Feb or something. I haven't got as much fiction reading done as I might have liked, though I've got a couple of books here and I've got a couple more nearly finished. There are 3 graphic novels, though, which I will very quickly sum up as we go. First, a reread of The Hobbit was finished. This I was doing with a student, and it was really, really enjoyable. The Hobbit's a great book. I've reviewed it here separately, standalone, before, and it is a really good book. Is one thing, it's readable by adults and by children. It's something you have to give yourself to. I suspect some adults bounce off it because they decide there was a hobbit who lived in a hole, sort of stuff. Oh, this must be stupid, which is itself a naive attitude, to approach something and attempt to take the first line in that sense as a summary. But it's interesting reading it with someone who knew the book, knew the films, all the films, but was really into the book. And we had a lot of discussion about certainly differences between the films and the books, but also the kind of, I guess, what was interesting and exciting about it, and about the characters and about alternate histories of Middle Earth and stuff like that. And it was really fun. And I was particularly struck this time. One thing I was really struck by, let's put it this way, was by style, writing style in 2 ways. One, actual style, style proper, the idea of how he puts together sentences. And Tolkien is incredibly good at writing. He has very clear style, very good style. And 2, voice. And really, I suppose, voice, most obviously, one of the things I think about to do with The Hobbit is it's funny, and it doesn't try to be funny, as it obviously is trying to be funny. It makes jokes, but it's not trying to be funny. It's more that there's an organic humour that Tolkien finds in the situations and can communicate, and that's effective. But it's not a comedy book, and it's something, I think, again, something you almost get. The films misrepresent, by the way. There's a certain degree of goofiness. We find out from Gandalf. This might just be Bilbo's perspective on this if you read The Quest for Erebor in Unfinished Tales. But certainly Bilbo perceives it as a bit goofy at points, but it's also pretty deadly serious at points. And there's plenty of stuff where, we should be thinking in terms of quite serious dwarven crusade. Well, not entirely well thought through, but serious dwarven crusade to take back their home. So yes, I really enjoyed The Hobbit as a reread. 3 graphic novels. Let's start. I read The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, several issues back when it was first out in 2006, 2007, whatever it is. This is issues 1 to 4 of that, of Ryan North's series. And it's got her debut from Marvel Superheroes 1990, number 8. And this, I don't think, aged super well for me, because it was on my stack, and I was like, I'll just read it because it should be fairly easy. And I found it a bit slow because it's not amazing. I think it was peak of dorkability. New Girl was still on TV. I like New Girl, by the way. But New Girl was still on TV, I think. And you can see that it rising in Marvel films, and the kind of the over quirky, everything's ironic kind of humor. Oh well, that happened. And there's a nexus of that stuff, and you see it here. And it works at points, and if you see it as a pure comedy book, like canonically, if you're thinking about it in Marvel 616, obviously none of this could ever happen, or most of it could never happen. But that's kind of the same all the way back to the introduction. There's some sense in which Squirrel Girl's this weirdo who turns up and wants to be an Avenger, but is obviously kind of a complete Fruit Loop, and is a comedy character, and which is kind of weird in itself. There's a whole strange thing about Ditko's creation there. But yeah, it's got its moments. It's got some fun bits. The art style is well accomplished if looking for an audience, incredibly specific. Second, this is The Owl Hen Caregiver and Other Tales. This is some of the Free Comic Book Day stories from Mouse Guard by David Peterson. Because basically he stopped writing full-length books when he started looking after his mother, who's passed a couple of years ago, I think, now. But, he would still do a Free Comic Book Day entry. And I love his art. I think his art is genuinely stunning. His writing, in terms of literally the style we talked about with Tolkien, is never amazing. But there are points here where there's sincerity carries him a long way, and the Owlhen caregiver particularly, which there's some autobiography, and pretty obviously he says so at the end. That's just very strong. So I was pleased to read it without thinking it was blowaway. And Blake and Mortimer, the Atlantis mystery, which is, it really feels like in creation-wise, it's where Blake and Mortimer is hitting its stride, because you get Secret of the Swordfish, which is a kind of great spy, semi-super technological thriller about a war. Great Pyramid, which is the start of this sort of the weirder side of Blake and Mortimer. And I think this is following on from the great... and the Yellow M, which is super tech. Seems very accessible introduction, by the way, the Yellow M. I'm not sure how far it is or isn't in a way, but Atlantis mystery is... They go to Atlantis. It turns out it's still there, and they got super technology. I love Blake and Mortimer. I love the art. I think this is one of the worst culprits of any Edgar Jacobs graphic novel or story I've read, for having infinitely large text box full of infinite text. And that could just be a criticism of his writing style. It is probably partly a criticism of his layouts, that he has and this is good, as in what I mean is I enjoy it. There's this fairly static style of presentation. He takes a certain kind of lean Claire idea and is like, look, this is just really still and static and posed and eye-catching, like it's stylized. But that sometimes means that action is not clearly represented. You need to be told what a lot of people are thinking and feeling. That's not always the case. He can draw other ways, but yeah. So I enjoyed the Atlantis mystery. Anyway, and I'd say in his Borelli books, I don't find that so much. There's, the action is a bit clearer. Sorry, Borelli's by Bob Demore, of course. I don't know why I was thinking of that. What's the other thing Jacobs did? Someone tell me in the comments. And Latro 2. Latro 2, Soldier of Arete, which was the big... I did it as buddy read with my my friend Matthew, friend of the channel. And we talked about it on the book Discord, actually. And it was really, really good. It was... he wrote 2 in the 80s, these 2, Soldier in the Mist. And then he wrote 1 in the noughties, which I haven't read. I'd like to read, might read this year. Soldier of Sidon. So Soldier of the Mist, Soldier of Arete. And it's basically about a guy who's lost his memory, who's walking around ancient Greece. But he can see the gods, and the gods are real and stuff. So it's a fantasy. And it's an interesting take on how history really happened, or something, very much living in the world of Herodotus and Thucydides. And other ancient writers. And Soldier of Arete, I think I enjoyed about as much as I enjoyed Soldier of the Mist as the general view. I think if I was picking some technicalities, I'd say it is a very slight step down because, for me, because things that some other people like in Wolfe came up very often. There's a big thing Wolfe does that at its best is very effective, of sort of says, look, okay, I'm not going to tell you what actually happened at this point. You've got to work it out looking backwards. We'll just jump. And there's some degree of the Wolfian puzzle for people. I think a great thing about Soldier of the Mist is it's really straightforward plot-wise. The mysteries, the things that you're trying to work out, aren't really to do with exact passages of events. There's some weird stuff about identity and identity coming up with multiple characters. And working that out, particularly with Latro, of course. Who is he? Whereas Soldier of Arete uses that Wolfian device much more often, for various reasons. I think there's some kind of inherent reasons, structural reasons, but yeah. So I enjoyed it a lot. I think it was interesting seeing a different problem come up, which is his identity has been, we've started to learn about it in the first book, but here. That's actually just working out the exact details of his identity comes up a bit. But it's actually not as important as you'd think, because there's this sense of who he now is that comes out, and we're investigating some of that. And I think there's a really touching, powerful thing. Basically, Latro is a really powerful character, I think, in lots of ways, as a an essentially innocent, good man, a man who's practiced goodness enough that it comes naturally to him even when he can't remember who he is. That's the Arete, the virtue, the strength. And that issue comes up, by the way, is how can Arete, named after Ares, sometimes be about not fighting? There's lots of good conversations in it. There's some great riffs on Thucydides and Herodotus, some great action scenes, some moving stuff. There are a couple of just really kind of touching moments, I thought, for me. There's some puzzling things, some things I definitely was like, what's going on with this? How am I meant to think about this? But yes, as I say, just really nicely written. It's in Wolfe's earlier style and really nicely written. I liked it a lot. My first Wolfe book of the year. I'll try to get in. Certainly, Pirate Freedom is on the list. Maybe Live Free Live. Maybe Soldier of Sidon if I can buy it, as I don't own it yet. But yeah, all very good books. All very well considered books in lots of ways. But yes, that was a very good Wolfian start to the year to finish that. If you've read any of these, and particularly Latro and The Hobbit, I'd love to hear your thoughts on those in the comments. And I'll see you next time.